your DOT would love to see that. And if you look at that map, the one with the encircled one is the exact location of the proposed low-cost terminal. The entire area assigned to the low-cost terminal is 64 hectares, so that you can have a terminal that can have as much as 30 million passengers throughput and a parking bay of about 36 parking bays for any expansion of the airlines. Again, with the aid of US8, Clark has hired consultants to do a financial and conceptual study of the budget terminal for submission to NEDA as a first step in later on the construction of. As you can see, that shows conceptually the parking bays. Since it's a low-cost terminal, you don't have the sophisticated gate. It is designed to appear, and it will have 16 parking bays with 2 parking bays that is good for wide-body aircraft at the end. The terminal, as you can see, has a floor space of only 18,300 square meters. It is designed for faster processing of passengers from the entry gates back to the boarding gates. As you can see, if you look at it, that portion over there, you have about 68 check-in counters. At the entrance, you have 10 X-ray machines that will process the passenger much faster. We are trying to achieve the IATA Level 2 service of processing passengers within 15 minutes from entry to the boarding gates. It's friendly. You'll have even 2 parking buildings where you can park and fly, and you can walk from that building all the way to your boarding gates overcovered. As you can see, we have a 4-lane road surrounding the parking bays so that the arrival and the departure traffic will not clash with each other. You look at the profile of the terminal, you will see that you can walk from the parking all the way to your boarding gates without being under the elements. And of course, as usual, SEAC management is always having their forward thinking. They know that as they grow, accessibility to Clark will become an issue. So they have talked to Ayala Land, and they jointly put up a bus terminal system in Trinoma. This is a first step to having a full city check-in, like you see in Hong Kong in some of the big cities. With Trinoma and its location, that air passenger terminal will be 1 hour away from Clark International Airport. Again, like we said, the idea of being 1 hour away can be met without very huge investment. If you go to Taipei and the Taoyuan Airport, you will see that airport now has a capacity of over 50 million. It is serviced by 15-minute interval efficient bus service going down to Taiwan. I take it almost every month because I'm always there that often. There are some of the bus companies that are serving it now. Very cheap, 200 pesos one way. That's cheaper than any taxi you take in Metro Manila to go to Manila. So what are the next steps? Simple. 2013, full implementation of the land use plan. Let the private sector participate in the development of the airport. In many airports, 70% of its earnings are not really out of aeronautical expenses, aeronautical revenues. They're also always gained from the other commercial establishments that are located within the airport complex. Phase 2 expansion of Terminal 1. It is very important, as you can see in my earlier slides. Even at Phase 2, expansion of the present terminal, you will only have a capacity of 4 to 4.5 million when the airlines are trying to get to 6 million capacities already quite quickly this year. Then, of course, completion of the feasibility and financial studies of the budget terminal to be submitted to NEDA, hopefully within the first quarter, to avoid, anyway, the slow pace that comes through with government during an election year. 2014, the budget terminal should be bidded out under the public-private partnership or PP program, so that in 2.5 years, at what the engineers say, you will have a 15 million terminal in Clark. And then, of course, again, trying to anticipate the future, you must complete a study. We must complete a study for a full cargo terminal. No joke. If you look at what the airlines are trying to do, you'll have about 100 flights a day operating in Clark, somewhere between 2015 to 2016. So even if you are only being serviced by an Airbus 320, even on full load, an Airbus 320 can still carry between 1 to 1.5 tons. If you have 100 flights a day, you'll have 100 tons going, you'll have 100 tons coming in. That's 200 tons of cargo possible a day. You need a cargo terminal to process it. We have 70 hectares of a designed cargo village that the terminal can be constructed. Then, of course, 2017, hopefully, completion of the budget terminal first phase. And 2018, when all of these other things, smaller things are done, then somebody can sit down and conceptualize the start of a giant gateway terminal. So it's really time to change. It's really time to think of change. I quote from the book, Aerotropolis. It says, from one of the contributors, Mr. Alvin Toffler, the illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read and write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. And from the author himself, John Casarda, I would like to quote, there is no magic bullet in economic transformation. True transformation comes about when people across and within all sectors of government, education, business, and industry, not for profit, arts, or culture, come together in genuine partnership for the common good. It comes about when bureaucratic impediments are swept aside. It comes about when the intertwined with basic improvements, a few bold experiments are launched. And it comes about when the public and private sectors come together to invest the resources needed to stimulate transformation. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming and thank you for listening.
Well, Ben, that was a fantastic update and overview on what the latest scenario is, setting the record straight, as you called it, and also some fantastic vision into plans and potential for the future. We're going into the public sector panel discussion now, so I'd like you to hold your questions for Ben. We'll invite the panelists up, and Ben has kindly agreed to stay up here and take your questions as you may have them. But this is very exciting. We have, as John set out for us, we have this legacy that we inherited, this infrastructure, fantastic infrastructure here, ready and waiting, and we're making great progress in capitalizing on that, but more to be done and maybe some acceleration in that progress. So what we've got for you now is a panelist of public sector leaders to come up and share their thoughts and take your questions, and I invite questions and comments on this whole future for Clark as the Aerotropolis of Asia's future. I should remind you that after lunch we will have from the horse's mouth the insights into Aerotropolis and twin airport cities and what this all means and how it unfolds from one of the co-authors of the book. But for now we'll do the public sector panel discussion. We have four panelists going to come and join Ben here. I'd like to introduce them and invite them up one by one. And I'll start with the lady on the panel, if I may. So we have Ms. Faye Agoncillo Reyes. She's head of the Investments Promotion Group at the Board of Investments. You will see from your brochure a distinguished public sector career. She's responsible for the investments generation for the Philippines, strategic promotion into the country, and assets in the formulation of industrial policies. Faye, thank you for joining the panel, please. You will see a distinguished career here, Executive Director of the Centre of International Trade Expositions and Missions, Assistant Secretary for International Trade, Executive Director of Garments and Textile Export Board. So a wealth of experience in the public sector. Thank you for joining the panel. Also on the panel, the man that is responsible for It's More Fun in the Philippines, Honorary Ramon Jimenez, Secretary for the Department of Tourism. He's the man behind this tagline. He is the man behind the tagline, but he's not with us at the moment. We have somebody representing him. Okay, but it is more fun in the Philippines, and we have 133 destinations on Emirates from October the 1st. So my apologies for that. Representing the Secretary of Tourism, we have the Assistant Secretary for the Department of Tourism, Benito Benjon Jr. So Benito, please. And thirdly on the panel we have Attorney Arnel Casanova, President and CEO of the Basis Conversion and Development Authority. Another distinguished track record here. Of note is that he's received the Philippine Legion of Honor Medal, a very high distinguishment there. And he was also chosen by the Asia Society in New York as one of the top 21 Asia young leaders for the future. So let's welcome Attorney Arnel Casanova. And then to join, finally join the panel, we have a distinguished professor, very impressive academic qualifications here. Dr. Bernardo Villegas is a professor at the University of Asia and the Pacific. He specializes in development economics, business economics, and social economics. As mentioned earlier, he's a Harvard PhD. He's also a visiting professor at the IESC Business School in Barcelona and a professor, as I said, at the University of Asia and Pacific. So these are our public sector panelists. Please give them all a welcome, and we'll express our gratitude to them for joining us today. I'm going to have to do a bit of a switch around, but that's probably not bad for me because I need more exercise. I'm what's called a wide body craft. As we know, they'll be coming in soon in October. So what I'd like to do, we've heard Ben's setting out some plans for the future. What I'd like to do is invite each of our four public sector panelists to give us some opening comments, just a couple of minutes, on how they see the potential, what is being done for the Philippines aviation industry generally, but specifically for Clark from the aviation sector, specifically here in Clark. And if I may, I'd like to invite ladies first, if that's okay, and ask Faye to start us off with just some opening comments. Thank you, Faye.
Good morning, everyone. I'm glad to be here in Clark, especially that I see Chisha Luciano and Captain Solis, who we were together at the air negotiating panel for 6 years, and we were insisting all the time that Clark should appear in all air services agreements. And so I'm glad that from one flight a day, you have about 21 flights. And I'm heartened to note that when I was speaking to Secretary Jimenez, that you're building another terminal, a tent, just to accommodate the huge influx of tourists. We're glad to hear that. Now, from the point of view of investments, John Forbes is right. There's been such an influx of investors coming into the country. Last year alone was like twice the year before that. So about over 500 investors that we talk to on a daily basis. And that translated to about, just for BOI and PEZA alone, about 15 billion in investment approvals. What is particular for Clark is that Clark is included, and aviation and logistics is included in the industry roadmap that the BOI has initiated. So we're really looking at the promotion of Clark as not only as a logistics hub, but a manufacturing hub as well. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much, Faye. I think we'll probe a little bit more into this industrial aspect, manufacturing and logistics, as we get into the panel discussion. Benito, obviously some great things happening from the tourism perspective. Share with us your thoughts.
Thank you. First of all, allow me to extend my warmest congratulations to the organizers. This is very timely because when you look at the National Tourism Development Plan, a key strategy that is embodied is the promotion of international access and connectivity. And this is exactly what this conference seeks to achieve. I must also congratulate SIAC. I don't think there's any airport authority in the country, and please don't quote me, that works harder or more aggressively than Clark International Airport Corporation. I've been with Mr. Luciano in a few international events, and I can confidently say that the effort that he has exerted has set the benchmark, and something that we hope the other airport authorities can emulate. Certainly, the development of Clark Airport will play a very crucial role in our drive to achieve 10 million foreign visitors by 2016. Right now, we're seeing a bigger role for Clark, both as a gateway and as a destination in itself. And I'm hopeful that over the next couple of days, we can map out specific steps on how we can get more flights here into Clark. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Benito. Arnel, from the basis conversion perspective, done some fantastic progress in recent years. What's coming up next?
Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you for inviting me here, and I'd like to congratulate the organizers for coming up with this conference. I think it's about time, and we should have more of this. I think on the part of BCDA, being the landowner of all the Clark and other former U.S. military bases, we are wrapping up actually the development of the Bonifacio Global City. If you've seen that, it used to be an army camp, which is now the premier central business district. And we're moving towards the full development of Clark as a metropolitan area. And we're actually wrapping up the master planning of the unutilized and idle lands in Clark. And we see the fast development in the region, particularly, we're looking at utilizing the airport and the seaport of Subic, serving the new metropolis. The area of the new city would be about 8,800 hectares, but this would be on a 30-year phased development. And we're looking at bringing in government centers, educational institutions. I've seen it earlier in the presentation. We're actually trying to attract also educational institutions to come into the city. And so that you could see, I think in the next 10 years, the Clark would eventually evolve into a new metropolitan district. And this would be a green and intelligent city. We have partnered with the Cisco and Senchos, who's been doing the ICT infrastructure in Songdo, actually. And we have partnered also with Urban Land Institute to look into the master plan that we've done so far. We have partnered with the Philippine Green Building Council to come up with the standards and rating system for the green building development. So I think it's the biggest project that we have so far now. And BCDA is right in the heart of developing and unlocking the values of provided in our mandate, which allows us to develop all the infrastructures and utilities within these special economic zones. The infrastructure in Subic, Clark, John Hay, Poro Point, and these former U.S. military bases were actually done by BCDA. SCTEX was a project of BCDA. And the way we see it with the good governance advocacy of the President, and good governance being one of the major challenges in public infrastructure implementation, I think we have a chance to really implement these projects fast. And I think the key is really the clarity of vision, the execution, and actually a determined action and the organization to come towards the success of any implementation. So I think we're right on the right track. We're doing it already. Actually, most of the presentations being done is already being started. So we see this as we move forward to the next years. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Arnel. Thank you. I hope you're thinking of some questions to put to our esteemed panelists. Before we do that, Dr. Bernardo, you're a specialist in development economics, amongst many other things. Could you give us your perspective on what's being done for Clark Aviation and what more could be done?
Thank you very much. I'd like to say first that I'm the odd man out. I don't work for the government. Therefore, if I say something critical of the government, please quote me. But first of all, I will say a lot of good things about the government. First, let me assure, especially those of you who are coming from other countries, that this 7 to 8% growth rate that we will be seeing this year. So my forecast for 2013 is 8% of GDP growth. Now that growth rate is sustainable for the next 20 years thanks to the governance reforms that we are seeing in this present government. The President is really building on many other reforms before him. He says very humbly that he's just standing on the shoulders of all the other presidents who have come. So don't think that everything we can attribute to President Nonoy Aquino. But what he has added is the final touch, good governance. And that is why we are now attracting all of these investors mentioned by Fe. And what I'd like to do, and I purposely wore this batik barong, so it's a combination, a fusion between Indonesia and the Philippines, is to remind you that by 2015, we are beginning the most exciting experiment of a common market among 10 countries in the ASEAN. What happened in the last century to the European community will be happening to this region in the next 20 years. So just think back. After the Second World War, Germany was devastated, France was devastated, Italy was devastated. They had the common sense to put together a common market, which evolved into the EEC. They just made one mistake. They adopted a common currency. We will not make that mistake, but we will make a common market. In the same way that by the end of the last century, Europe, because of the EEC, was strong enough to challenge the US and Japan in economic supremacy. The ASEAN, with 600 million consumers, in 10 to 20 years, will be strong enough to challenge China and India for supremacy in this region. And that's what I would like you to consider when you talk about the Aerotropolis, that Clark is a perfect center for the Philippines to integrate into this ASEAN. First of all, it will have to be VIP. Vietnam, Indonesia, and the Philippines. The three largest economies that are considered as emerging markets in the list of the next 11 by Goldman Sachs. These are the most attractive sites for investment in the ASEAN. And then, of course, including the others. The problem with Thailand is aging too fast for a poor country. It's already suffering labor shortages. While Indonesia, the Philippines, and Vietnam are still enjoying what is called the demographic dividend, and we will have that at least for the next 20 years. Now, I said something critical. I think our government should forget talks about Cavite, Bulacan as an alternative. They're just confusing the foreigners. And I'm not saying this to please you people here. I've said this in other fora in Manila. There's absolutely no sense about talking about Cavite, Bulacan. They have no runways to talk about. And I'm going to say something probably very controversial. Even if the Secretary of Transport Industry comes from Cavite, we should not talk about Cavite. No. So, I can be very frank, precisely because I work for a private think tank. Now, why should we talk about Clark? Because, as Fe already mentioned, there is a very visible trend that a lot of Japanese, Korean, and China-based factories are now moving to the Philippines. You talk to Lilia de Lima. She cannot cope with all the requests of the Japanese companies who want to come here. And I come from Batangas, so I can be very, very objective. Southern Luzon is saturated. No more pesos can be put up there. I come from Santo Tomas, Batangas, and in my small town, there are probably 6 pesos, as Fe knows very well. Central Luzon has tremendous area for expansion, and you can absorb. Why are people moving away from Japan? You know this, those of you who are from outside. Energy has become even more expensive in Japan because of their closing down of the nuclear plants. Japanese have no more babies, no more workers. Japanese firms in China are closing down in Shenzhen, in Shanghai, in Guangzhou, also because in these Chinese cities, they've run out of workers. Some of these factories are suffering 30% to 50% attrition in their respective factories. That's why they're moving to Vietnam, the Philippines, Indonesia. We're not alone, we're competing. But all this movement, Japan from China, will definitely be best located in Central Luzon.